Which forgotten side dishes no one makes anymore once graced every family dinner and potluck spread?
Well, here's something that looks very interesting.
In the kitchens of the 1960s, 1970s, and 1980s, these side dishes carried flavor, comfort, and tradition that made meals feel whole. What does it say that so many have quietly vanished? 7-layer salad. 7-layer salad reigned supreme at potlucks throughout the 70s and 80s, always displayed in its towering glass bowl so everyone could admire each vibrant layer. Fresh iceberg lettuce formed the foundation, followed by bright green peas, sliced hard-boiled eggs, sharp diced onions, shredded cheese, and crumbled bacon, each component stacked with precision like a rainbow of beloved flavors. The finishing touch was a generous layer of mayonnaise spread across the top like smooth frosting, sealing everything fresh until serving time. Families treasured how it could be assembled hours ahead and chilled, ready to unveil at church socials or neighborhood gatherings. Children would dig through the layers, hunting for their favorite pieces, while adults marveled at the simple yet brilliant presentation. It was substantial enough to serve as a meal, yet always appeared alongside casseroles or fried chicken. Though seldom made today, 7-layer salad once stood as a shining example of practical cooking and community connection stacked in a bowl. Scalloped potatoes with ham. Scalloped potatoes with ham embodied comfort food, especially when stretching Sunday's leftovers became essential. Paper-thin potato slices were carefully arranged in a buttered casserole dish with chunks of ham nestled between each layer, then smothered in a rich cream sauce made from milk or canned soup. Grandmothers passed this recipe down as a master class in making a little meat feed many, turning ham scraps into a feast for the entire family. It graced Sunday dinner tables where it sat proudly beside roast chicken or green beans. Children never protested eating potatoes prepared this way because the salty ham pieces were delightful surprises hidden within each bite, a dish that made every forkful taste richer than the simple ingredients suggested. Today, it has largely vanished, replaced by convenient boxed alternatives. Copper penny salad. Copper penny salad earned its name from the gleaming round carrot slices that formed its base, shimmering after marinating in a zesty tomato vinegar dressing. Homemakers adored this dish because it improved with time, could be prepared days ahead, and emerged from the refrigerator whenever unexpected guests arrived. The carrots were sliced into perfect coins, then combined with onion rings and chopped bell peppers before soaking in the tangy red marinade. After chilling overnight, the flavors melded together, creating a sweet and sour bite that felt refreshing alongside richer dishes like fried chicken or pork chops. It became a picnic essential because it traveled beautifully and only grew more delicious after a day in the cooler. Children who typically avoided plain carrots found the bright dressing and colorful peppers exciting enough to try. Copper penny salad was economical, flavorful, and visually striking in a way that made it indispensable on mid-century tables. Congealed lime salad. Congealed lime salad was one of those distinctive mid-century inventions that merged sweet and savory into something unexpected yet cherished. It began with lime gelatin, bright and jiggly, then incorporated cream cheese, crushed pineapple, and chopped walnuts. The outcome was a pale green molded creation that graced holiday buffets, church potlucks, and wedding receptions alike. The tart lime provided perfect balance to the creaminess of cheese, while pineapple contributed bursts of sweetness and walnuts delivered satisfying crunch. It was always shaped in decorative molds, transforming it into a centerpiece as much as a side dish. Children delighted in poking its wobbly surface, while adults appreciated the novelty of something that functioned as both salad and dessert. Congealed lime salad captured the experimental spirit of 60s and 70s kitchens when gelatin served as the foundation for countless creative recipes. Macaroni and tomatoes. Macaroni and tomatoes was among the most straightforward dishes ever prepared, yet it held profound significance in resourceful kitchens. Elbow pasta was boiled until tender, then simmered with stewed tomatoes, diced onions, and careful seasoning. It was inexpensive, effortless, and deeply satisfying, a method for transforming pantry staples into something warm and filling. This dish frequently appeared on weeknight tables when budgets were stretched, delivering comfort without luxury. Its flavors were gentle but substantial, with sweet tomatoes coating every piece of pasta. Some families added a sprinkle of cheese on top, while others kept it plain to save money. It wasn't glamorous, but it was reliable, proving how much magic could happen with just a can of tomatoes and a box of pasta. Children grew up considering it a staple, and for many it became forever linked to memories of home. Frog eye salad. Frog eye salad was among the most unforgettable creations ever to grace church gatherings and holiday spreads. Despite its peculiar name, it was simply tiny acini de pepe pasta combined with fruit, custard, and whipped topping. The miniature pasta pearls resembled frog eyes, inspiring the dish's playful moniker. Cans of pineapple, mandarin oranges, and occasionally cherries were folded in, creating something sweet and vibrant. Families loved how it transformed pantry basics into something that felt exotic and entertaining for its time. The creamy custard enveloped every bite, while fruit provided bursts of brightness. It became particularly popular at family reunions, where enormous bowls could satisfy dozens with ease. Children always reached for it first, enchanted by its sweetness, while adults valued its light yet substantial nature. Frog eye salad may sound peculiar today, but it once brought delight, laughter, and a splash of color to community tables nationwide. Three-bean salad. Three-bean salad was the quintessential side dish of the 70s, celebrated for its brilliant colors and sweet, tangy flavor profile. It combined green beans, yellow wax beans, and red kidney beans, all dressed in a vinegar-sugar marinade with chopped onions. The salad was thoroughly chilled before serving, allowing the dressing to penetrate every bean. It appeared at every picnic, potluck, and family reunion, admired for its beauty and simplicity. The beans provided protein and substance, while the dressing perfectly balanced sour with sweet in a way that complemented nearly any main course. Families appreciated it because it kept well, surviving even without refrigeration for several hours, making it ideal for outdoor celebrations. It was thrifty, attractive, and simple to prepare in massive quantities. Broccoli rice. Casserole. Broccoli rice casserole was a 70s favorite when canned soups were kitchen essentials. This dish layered rice, broccoli florets, cream of mushroom soup, and melted cheese baked until bubbly on top. It was hearty, creamy, and filling, perfect for feeding a family affordably. The broccoli made it appear nutritious, even though the richness of soup and cheese transformed it into pure indulgence. It became a holiday tradition, appearing at Thanksgiving or Christmas as the expected green side dish. Children often experienced broccoli for the first time through this casserole, thanks to the appealing, cheesy topping. It was simple to prepare ahead and slide into the oven, making it perfect for busy households. Broccoli rice casserole represented the convenience cooking era when canned goods and casseroles dominated dining tables. Corn pudding. Corn pudding once reigned over holiday tables, a silky custard created from fresh or canned corn, blended with eggs, milk, and a hint of sugar. It was sweet, savory, and comforting, bridging the space between vegetable and dessert. Families served it at Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Sunday dinners, where it symbolized warmth and tradition. the surface baked to a golden crust, while the interior remained soft and custardy, almost like spoon bread. It was a side dish that felt special despite using the simplest ingredients. Generations grew up with corn pudding as a reminder of festive meals shared together. It was easy to prepare but always impressive, demonstrating the magic of transforming corn into something extraordinary. Today, it has slipped from holiday menus, but its memory persists in cookbooks and stories of those who once served it proudly at family gatherings. Carrot Raisin Salad. Carrot raisin salad was a bright, sweet side dish families frequently served at picnics or potlucks. It combined shredded carrots with plump raisins, pineapple chunks, and mayonnaise, creating a blend of creamy, tangy, and sweet flavors. The salad was light yet satisfying, offering refreshing contrast to heavier meats and casseroles. Children especially enjoyed the raisins and pineapple, while parents appreciated how affordable and quick it was to prepare. It became a summer staple because it could be served chilled, staying cool and crisp in warm weather. Carrot raisin salad reflected the creativity of stretching simple ingredients into something fun and flavorful. It frequently appeared in community cookbooks and was passed down as a reliable recipe for gatherings. Over time, preferences changed, and mayonnaise-based salads lost popularity. But carrot raisin salad once stood as a bright symbol of shared meals and clever kitchen economy. Baked pineapple casserole. Baked pineapple casserole was one of those unusual dishes that balanced sweet and savory in ways only mid-century kitchens dared attempt. Families layered canned pineapple chunks with cubes of white bread and sharp cheddar cheese, then baked until golden and bubbling. The cheese melted into the bread while pineapple juices soaked through, creating a rich texture that was simultaneously gooey and tangy. It often graced Easter or Christmas tables alongside ham, where its sweet flavor paired beautifully with salty meats. Children loved the pineapple, while adults marveled at how something so strange could taste so wonderful. It was practical, too, since it stretched canned fruit into a side dish large enough to feed a crowd. Though it may sound odd today, baked pineapple casserole was once a treasured example of how creative and bold home cooks could be with everyday ingredients. Potato salad with pickle juice. Potato salad with pickle juice was a Southern classic that delivered a tangy punch to an old favorite. Potatoes were boiled, cubed, and mixed with chopped eggs, celery, onions, and plenty of mayonnaise. The secret was adding brine straight from the pickle jar, which brightened the flavors and gave the salad a zest regular vinegar couldn't match. Some families used dill pickles, others swore by sweet pickles, but both created a taste that stood out at picnics and church suppers. This salad was always served chilled, heaped into large bowls, and garnished with paprika for color. It paired wonderfully with barbecue, fried chicken, or anything grilled, making it essential for summer gatherings. Tomato aspic was a dish that puzzled outsiders but was once a proud part of American dining. It was made by combining tomato juice, gelatin, spices, and sometimes vegetables poured into molds and chilled until firm. The result was a savory, wobbly creation served in slices like salad. Families often brought it out for holidays where its bright red color looked festive on the table. It was tangy, spicy, and refreshing, often paired with lettuce or cottage cheese. Housewives loved it because it was inexpensive, kept well in the refrigerator, and could be prepared ahead of time. Tomato aspic may seem strange today, but in the 1960s and 70s, it was a sign of sophistication, showing how adventurous cooks could be with gelatin. Shoestring potato casserole. Shoestring potato casserole was a thrifty invention that used canned shoestring potatoes as its foundation. These thin strips of fried potatoes were layered in a casserole dish with cream soup, onions, and cheese, then baked until bubbling. The result was a crunchy, creamy side dish, hearty enough to accompany meatloaf or roast beef. Families enjoyed how simple it was to assemble, requiring only pantry staples and oven time. The casserole was also popular at church suppers, where it could feed many without costing much. Though it has nearly vanished today, shoestring potato casserole once represented the creativity of transforming canned goods into meals that felt homemade and satisfying. Sweet and sour red cabbage. Sweet and sour red cabbage was a Midwest staple that combined bold color with bold flavor. Heads of red cabbage were shredded and braised with vinegar, sugar, and sometimes apples, creating a dish that was tangy, slightly sweet, and deeply comforting. The long cooking made the cabbage tender and infused every bite with flavor. Families passed this recipe down through generations, connecting it to both German heritage and American practicality. It was economical, nutritious, and added brightness to otherwise heavy meals. Though it has faded from modern menus, sweet and sour red cabbage was once a proud symbol of regional pea and cheese. Salad pea and cheese salad was a creamy dish that appeared at countless potlucks and holiday dinners. Frozen or canned peas were thawed and mixed with cubes of cheddar cheese, chopped onions, and mayonnaise. But the heart of the salad was the sweet peas, contrasting the salty cheese. Served chilled, it was refreshing and hearty simultaneously, making it a favorite on hot days or crowded tables. Families loved it because it came together quickly and could be made. It was often served in large bowls at reunions where its familiar taste brought comfort to everyone. Today it is rarely made, but pea and cheese salad once stood proudly among classic American side dishes. Spinach Madeleine. Spinach Madeleine was one of the most iconic Southern side dishes of the mid-20th century. Fresh or frozen spinach was cooked down and blended with cream, butter, and the famous jalapeno cheese roll that gave it a spicy, tangy flavor. Baked until it was creamy, rich, and unlike any other vegetable dish on the table. Families often served it at holidays where its bold taste made it stand out among casseroles and bread. It showed how simple vegetables could be elevated with creativity and a little. Though jalapeno cheese roll has disappeared from most grocery stores, the recipe lives on in memory as a clever and flavorful twist on cucumber and onion salad. Cucumber and onion salad was a simple but refreshing side that families turned to during hot summer. Thinly sliced cucumbers were tossed with onion rings, vinegar, sugar, and dill, then chilled until crisp and tangy. It was cool, light, and perfect for balancing heavier dishes like fried chicken or ribs. Families often grew cucumbers in backyard gardens, making this salad a natural way to use the harvest. At reunions and church picnics, it was a familiar favorite, easy to serve in large bowls. Children sometimes found it too tangy, but adults appreciated its refreshing. Though overshadowed today by modern salads, cucumber and onion salad was once a summer essential in homes across America. Stuffed celery sticks. Stuffed celery sticks were a favorite party platter item from the 1960s through the 1980s. Celery stalks were filled with cream cheese, pimiento spread, or even peanut butter, then arranged neatly on trays. They were crunchy, creamy, and easy to pick up with fingers, making them perfect for cocktail parties or church socials. Stuffed celery was practical, inexpensive, and endlessly adaptable, depending on what was in the refrigerator. It was often one of the first things children grabbed thanks to the creamy filling. Over time, this dish faded from popularity, replaced by more elaborate appetizers. Still, stuffed celery sticks once symbolized the charm of simple entertaining done with zucchini fritters. Zucchini fritters were a clever way to transform surplus garden vegetables into something crisp and delicious. Grated zucchini was mixed with breadcrumbs, eggs, and seasoning, then pan-fried into golden patties. They were crunchy outside and tender inside, making them irresistible as a side dish or snack. Families discovered them at the height of summer when gardens overflowed with zucchini. Instead of wasting the abundance, home cooks created a recipe that celebrated. The fritters could be eaten plain, dipped in sauces, or served with meats, making them versatile and popular. Children who resisted zucchini often loved the fritters, proving the method worked. Though not as common today, zucchini fritters once stood as a perfect example of kitchen resourcefulness. Cauliflower Gratin. Cauliflower gratin was once the star of Sunday dinners, a dish that transformed a plain vegetable into something rich and elegant. Florets of cauliflower were steamed until tender, then baked in a creamy white sauce and topped with melted cheddar or breadcrumbs. It emerged from the oven, bubbling and golden, irresistible, and served in casserole dishes large enough to feed the whole family. The recipe was passed down in cookbooks and often appeared at holiday tables where it was remembered as both economical and impressive. For children, it was one of the few ways cauliflower actually seemed exciting, while adults enjoyed how it felt indulgent without being expensive. Over time, cauliflower became trendy in new forms like pizza crusts and rice substitutes, but the gratin has mostly disappeared. It was once a reminder that vegetables could shine with a little cheese, butter, and patience in the kitchen. Hot German potato salad. Hot German potato salad was a dish that carried warmth both in temperature and flavor. Unlike traditional chilled versions, this salad was served hot, made with sliced potatoes, tossed in a tangy vinegar, dressing enriched with bacon and onions. It was hearty, savory, and perfect alongside sausages or roasted chicken. The salad was especially popular at church suppers and summer picnics, where its bold flavor stood out among milder dishes. Families of German heritage passed it down through generations, but it was widely enjoyed by many in the Midwest and beyond. It combined thrift with flavor, stretching simple potatoes into a dish that satisfied everyone at the table. Over the decades, as mayonnaise-based potato salads dominated, the warm vinegar version quietly slipped away. Yet, for those who remember it, hot German potato salad represented the charm of home-style cooking, where nothing was wasted and every bite carried comfort. Molded cranberry salad. Molded cranberry salad was a mid-century classic that combined convenience with presentation. Canned cranberry sauce was blended with gelatin, crushed pineapple, nuts, and sometimes orange peel, then poured into decorative molds to set. The result was a shimmering ruby-red creation that held its shape when sliced. It became a regular feature at Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners, served alongside turkey as a sweet-tart balance. Children loved its jelly-like wobble, while adults appreciated the nutty crunch and festive appearance. Housewives prized it because it was inexpensive, easy to prepare ahead of time, and impressive when turned out onto a platter. Over the years, cranberry salad became less common as fresher side dishes gained favor. But for decades, it was the pride of many holiday tables. Its disappearance marks one of those quiet shifts that show how traditions fade, even ones that once defined the season. Succotash. Succotash was once a staple of American tables, though today it is rarely made outside of a few regional kitchens. At its heart, the dish was nothing more than sweet corn and lima beans, simmered slowly with butter, salt, and pepper. But it carried traditions that stretched across centuries. Native American communities introduced the pairing, and African American cooks preserved and adapted it, turning it into a side dish that spoke of both survival and celebration. Sometimes cream was added for richness, or bacon for smoky depth, but it remained simple, nourishing, and colorful. Families prepared it in summer when gardens overflowed, and many canned jars of it to retrieve in winter when fresh vegetables were scarce. It was humble, yet appeared at Sunday dinners, reunions, and even holiday tables, proof that thrift didn't have to mean blandness. Children grew up recognizing its bright mix of yellow and green on their plates, a reminder of the seasons. Over time, it began to feel old-fashioned, crowded out out by casseroles and convenience foods. Yet in its heyday, Succotash symbolized resourcefulness, cultural heritage, and the art of making a meal from the simplest harvests. Marinated mushrooms. Marinated mushrooms became a hit during the 1970s, an era when bold flavors and clever make-ahead recipes were celebrated. Small button mushrooms were quickly blanched, then bathed in a marinade of vinegar, garlic, olive oil, and herbs until they absorbed every drop of tangy flavor. Served chilled, they appeared glossy and elegant, standing out on buffet tables, picnic spreads, and cocktail trays. They carried a touch of Mediterranean influence, which at the time felt fashionable and sophisticated, yet the ingredients were inexpensive and accessible. Housewives liked them because they could be made in advance, leaving time for other dishes, and they kept well in jars or bowls until serving. Community cookbooks were filled with variations, some adding red pepper flakes, others experimenting with dill or mustard seeds. Families brought them to reunions and church suppers where they impressed without costing much. Over time, though, marinated mushrooms slipped away, replaced by convenience appetizers bought at grocery stores. They are rarely seen now, yet they once represented how a simple vegetable could be elevated with nothing more than patience and a clever brine. Their fading reminds us how quickly tastes and traditions can shift. Pineapple carrot gelatin salad. Pineapple carrot gelatin salad was one of those colorful creations that seemed to appear on every church supper table or holiday buffet in the 1960s and 70s. Housewives grated carrots by hand, stirred them into lime or orange gelatin, and folded in crushed pineapple for sweetness. Sometimes a ribbon of mayonnaise or whipped cream was added, turning it into a pastel creation that balanced tangy, sweet, and creamy flavors all at once. Set in decorative molds, it wobbled proudly in the center of tables, drawing curious stares and plenty of comments. Children found it both fascinating and confusing, unsure why carrots were hiding in something that looked like dessert. Adults enjoyed the cheerful presentation, appreciating how practical it was to prepare ahead of time. It traveled easily and always held its shape, making it a favorite for community events. It was a recipe that showed both thrift and imagination, stretching inexpensive canned fruit and gelatin into a side dish that could feed dozens. Though it has almost completely disappeared today, those who remember it can still picture the shimmering green or orange molds on family tables, symbols of a time when even vegetables could wobble their way into celebration. Green bean, almondine. Green bean almondine was once seen as the height of elegance, a dish borrowed from French kitchens but embraced wholeheartedly by American cooks during the mid-20th century. Fresh green beans were blanched until tender, then sautéed gently in butter until glossy and fragrant. Toasted almonds were sprinkled on top, giving each bite a crunch that made the humble beans feel like something special. Housewives loved how quickly it came together, yet how impressive it looked when served at Sunday dinners, weddings, or neighborhood dinner parties. It was a recipe that made vegetables seem glamorous, proving that with a little care, even the simplest produce could shine. Community cookbooks proudly included it, often underlined with notes about how fancy it appeared on a plate. Over the years, though, canned green beans and heavy casseroles took its place at most family tables. The refined almondine slipped into obscurity, remembered mostly by those who once admired its elegance. Yet, in its prime, it represented a moment when home cooking reached for a bit of European sophistication, and it taught families that vegetables could deserve the same spotlight as meats or desserts. Yellow squash casserole. Yellow squash casserole was one of those dishes that defined southern summers, a way of turning garden excess into comfort food that fed whole families. Squash grew abundantly, and rather than waste it, cooks sliced it thin, layered it with onions, added a scattering of breadcrumbs, generous butter, and of course plenty of cheese before baking it until bubbling and golden. The result was creamy, hearty and packed with flavor, yet light enough to serve alongside roasts, fried chicken, or even as part of a holiday spread. Families often relied on it as both a practical way to use the overflowing harvest and as a tradition that tied meals to the rhythms of the garden. At reunions and church dinners, large pans of it disappeared quickly, proving it was loved by both children and adults alike. Its popularity endured for decades before gradually fading as new vegetables and fresher trends pushed it aside. Yet, for those who remember, yellow squash casserole was not just a side dish. It was a reminder of community, thrift, and the satisfaction of transforming humble garden vegetables into something warm and celebratory. Pickled beets and eggs. Pickled beets and eggs were one of the most eye-catching side dishes ever served, their vibrant color making them stand out on any table. Hard-boiled eggs were placed into jars filled with beet brine, where they slowly transformed into shades of bright pink, the color seeping all the way through to the yolk. Alongside them, slices of pickled beets brought tang and sweetness that balanced the richness of meats or casseroles. The dish was especially beloved in Pennsylvania Dutch communities and African American kitchens, where pickling traditions carried deep cultural roots. Mock crab salad. Mock crab salad became a household favorite during the 1970s when families were experimenting with new, affordable ways to bring excitement to their tables. Real crab was too costly for many, so imitation crab made from white fish provided a clever substitute. Housewives mixed it with mayonnaise, diced celery, onions, and sometimes pasta, creating a creamy salad that mimicked the flavor of the real thing. Served cold, it quickly became a hit at parties, luncheons, and buffets, where its mild sweetness and familiar creaminess appealed to crowds. It was especially popular at church socials, where large bowls could be made for little money and still feel indulgent. Children enjoyed it too, as the pasta base and gentle flavor felt comforting and approachable. Over time, imitation crab lost its novelty, and the salad slipped out of fashion, replaced by trendier appetizers. But in its day, mock crab salad represented both thrift and creativity, proving families could enjoy a taste of luxury without breaking the budget. Harvard beets. Harvard beets were the kind of side dish you either loved with all your heart or politely pushed around the plate. But back in Grandma's day, they were something special. Tender beets simmered in a glossy, sweet and sour sauce made of sugar, vinegar, and a touch of butter or cornstarch for thickness. Sometimes cloves or allspice were added, giving them a spiced holiday feel that filled the room the moment they hit the stove. These beets had a deep ruby color that practically glowed in the bowl, and they were often served warm alongside pot roast or meatloaf. You would see them at church suppers, family holidays, or just because someone had canned a good harvest. They were a lesson in thrift, too, stretching garden beets through the winter with just a few pantry ingredients. People used to say Harvard beets were named after the university, but no one ever really cared. What mattered was that they gave even humble root vegetables a bit of elegance and shine. These days, you're more likely to see beets roasted with goat cheese than nestled in a sticky glaze. Deviled potato salad. Deviled potato salad put a zesty spin on traditional potato salad by adding a tangy mustard-based dressing that packed a flavorful punch. This vintage recipe took boiled potatoes and tossed them in a dressing made with yellow mustard, mayonnaise, vinegar, and seasonings to create a vibrant and slightly spicy side dish. Betty Crocker cookbooks celebrated deviled potato salad for its bold taste and easy preparation, making it a favorite at picnics, barbecues, and family gatherings. The mustard gave the creamy salad a lively kick that contrasted nicely with the soft potatoes, adding excitement to a classic comfort food. Often garnished with chopped chives or paprika, this salad brought both color and flavor to the table. It was a dish that pleased crowds by balancing creamy, tangy, and savory elements, all while remaining simple enough for home cooks to prepare in advance. Deviled potato salad remains a nostalgic reminder of inventive takes on beloved American classics. Wilted lettuce salad. Wilted lettuce salad with vinegar dressing was the forgotten side dish that brought warmth, tang, and a little bacon grease magic to family tables all across the South. You would take fresh lettuce, usually straight from the garden, pour hot bacon drippings mixed with vinegar, sugar, and a pinch of salt over the top, and watch the greens wilt down into tender, flavorful bites. It sounds odd to serve salad that way today, but back then this was comfort food at its finest. Families leaned on recipes like this to use up garden produce, stretch ingredients, and add a hearty, savory side to meals without spending extra money. Wilted lettuce salad was a regular at potlucks, Sunday suppers, and backyard gatherings, sitting proudly next to fried chicken, biscuits, or whatever main dish folks scraped together. You could dress it up with sliced onions, hard-boiled eggs, or crumbled bacon when you had extra to spare. Dilled green beans. Dilled green beans were crisp, cold, and full of bite, the kind of dish that cut through a heavy meal and made you feel a little more awake. Grandma would blanch fresh green beans just until tender, then toss them in a marinade of vinegar, sugar, water, and plenty of fresh dill. Sometimes there was garlic, too, or a few mustard seeds, but the real star was always the dill. The beans would soak overnight in the fridge and be served chilled the next day, usually from a glass bowl with little drops of condensation on the rim. They were bright, tangy, and a little bit sharp, perfect next to meatloaf, pork roast, or even a big baked potato. Dilled green beans were common in summer when the garden gave more than you could eat in one sitting. Tomato aspic with celery and olives. Tomato aspic with celery and olives was one of those curious gelatin-based sides that ruled vintage cookbooks, but slipped quietly off dinner tables as times changed. You would take savory tomato juice or seasoned broth, mix it with gelatin, and suspend chopped celery, olives, and sometimes hard-boiled eggs inside, then chill it in a mold until firm. It sounds strange now, but back in the 1950s and 60s, molded salads were a symbol of pride and resourcefulness, showing up at luncheons, holiday dinners, and potlucks all across America. Tomato aspic was considered elegant, even a little fancy, turning pantry staples into a glossy, structured side that balanced out roast meats, fried chicken, or whatever leftovers you had. Egg salad on toast. Egg salad on toast was one of those practical 10-minute meals that filled lunchboxes, fed tired workers, and showed up in every community cookbook for good reason. Leftover boiled eggs were never wasted. You chopped them up, mixed them with mayonnaise, maybe a little mustard if you were lucky, and piled it all onto a slice of toast. It sounds plain, but it got the job done. The eggs were filling. The toast made it portable, and you could whip it up in no time flat. This wasn't about fancy ingredients or gourmet flavors. It was the kind of recipe people leaned on when money was tight, time was short, and families still had to eat. You would see it at church luncheons, quick weekday dinners, or scribbled down on worn recipe cards tucked into kitchen drawers. It might be forgotten now, but egg salad on toast kept plenty of households going when they needed it most. Baked sweet potato fries. Baked sweet potato fries were a popular twist on the classic potato side, offering a sweet and savory alternative that baked to crispy perfection. Thinly sliced sweet potatoes were tossed in seasonings, often cinnamon, salt, or paprika, and baked until tender on the inside and slightly crisp on the edges. This healthier option appeared in many Betty Crocker cookbooks as a way to enjoy fries without deep frying, perfect for families seeking convenience and flavor. The natural sweetness of the potatoes paired beautifully with the warm spices, creating a comforting side that complemented both casual meals and special dinners. Baked sweet potato fries were easy to prepare and could be customized with various seasoning blends, making them versatile for many tastes. Hominy Casserole Bake. Hominy Casserole Bake was one of those hearty, dependable sides that quietly held Southern kitchens together, especially when every meal had to count. You would take cooked hominy, mix it with shredded cheese, a little cream, top it with breadcrumbs, and bake it until bubbling and golden. It was simple, filling, and made sure nothing went to waste. Hominy Casserole Bake showed up at church suppers, family reunions, and holidays, especially in rural areas where pantry staples had to stretch. It might sound old-fashioned now, but this cheesy casserole was pure comfort on a plate, adding a little richness to meals built around fried meats, barbecue, or stews. Creamed chipped carrots. Creamed chipped carrots were never flashy, but they had their place in Grandma's dinner rotation. She would slice carrots thin, sometimes with a hand-crank slicer, and simmer them until tender, then fold them into a creamy white sauce with butter and flour. The sauce was just enough to coat the carrots without drowning them, adding a gentle richness that softened their natural sweetness. You would find them beside meatloaf or roast turkey, sometimes served in little ramekins or scooped straight from a saucepan. It was a quiet dish, comforting in a way that didn't ask for attention. No spices, no tricks, just care, warmth, and the steady flavor of carrots made special. They were easy to prepare, cheap to make, and always familiar. Cornflake-topped vegetable medley. Cornflake-topped vegetable medley was the crunchy, thrifty side dish that showed up at potlucks and family dinners straight from those old spiral-bound cookbooks. You would take canned or frozen vegetables, stir them with cream sauce, pour it into a casserole dish, and finish it with a layer of crushed cornflakes before baking. It sounds unusual now, but back then this topping was genius. It added crunch, stretched ingredients, and turned plain vegetables into something hearty. Cornflake-topped vegetable medley earned its spot at the table because it made basic produce feel dressed up enough for guests or holidays. It sat proudly next to meatloaf, roast turkey, or ham, offering crispy contrast to heavier mains. Mayo and lettuce sandwiches. Mayo and lettuce sandwiches were one of those simple, no-nonsense Depression-era meals that somehow filled you up when there wasn't much else to work with. You slapped some mayonnaise on soft sandwich bread, added a few crisp iceberg lettuce leaves, and called it lunch. That was it. It might sound plain today, but back when grocery shelves were bare and paychecks were stretched thin, this quick little meal showed up on a lot of kitchen tables. Families made do with what they had, and mayonnaise gave the sandwich some fat and flavor, while lettuce added crunch and made it feel fresh. It was cheap, fast, and surprisingly satisfying when times were tough. Celery and walnut. Salad, celery and walnut salad was a classic side that brought crunch and creaminess together in perfect harmony. Crisp celery stalks were sliced thin and mixed with crunchy walnuts, then tossed in a light mayonnaise or yogurt dressing, creating a refreshing contrast in textures. This salad was often a staple in Betty Crocker cookbooks, celebrated for its ease and the satisfying bite it added to any meal. The cool, slightly bitter celery balanced the rich, buttery walnuts, while the creamy dressing tied it all together with a touch of tang. It was a favored side for holiday dinners and everyday meals alike, offering a healthy option that was still indulgent enough to feel like a treat. The nutty flavor of walnuts brought depth, and the salad's pale green hues added a fresh pop of color to the dinner plate. Its simple yet elegant nature made it beloved by home cooks, seeking something light and wholesome to complement heartier mains. Corn oysters. Corn oysters were one of those Depression-era dishes that didn't have a lick of seafood but still felt like something fancy. Grandma would mix corn, usually fresh or canned, with eggs, flour, and a bit of milk to make a thick batter. Then she would fry little spoonfuls in hot oil or bacon grease until they puffed up golden and crispy around the edges. The name came from the way they looked, round, plump, and golden like a fried oyster, but they were made of nothing more than corn and love. These fritters were often served as a side dish with soup or meatloaf, or even stacked up for breakfast. They were quick to make, easy to stretch, and always got eaten before they had time to cool. Mashed rutabagas. Mashed rutabagas were a less common but beloved vintage side dish that brought a buttery, creamy twist to a hearty root vegetable. This mashed treat was a staple in many Betty Crocker cookbooks, especially during times when variety was sought beyond the usual potatoes. Rutabagas, with their slightly sweet and earthy flavor, were boiled and mashed with butter and cream to create a smooth, comforting side that paired beautifully with roasted meats and stews. Their pale yellow color and mild taste made them a subtle yet satisfying addition to any plate. Unlike the more familiar mashed potatoes, rutabagas offered a slightly different texture and a hint of natural sweetness that made the dish feel special. It was a side that echoed simpler times and frugal kitchens where every ingredient was stretched and savored. Mashed rutabagas stood as a testament to vintage American cooking's ability to find comfort in unexpected places. Sour cream noodle bake. Sour cream noodle bake was the kind of creamy, carb-loaded side dish that quietly filled plates and bellies all across America, especially at mid-century potlucks and family dinners. You would boil up egg noodles, toss them with sour cream, butter, chives, and sometimes a little cheese, then bake the whole thing until warm and bubbling with golden edges. It was pure comfort food straight from the faded pages of those old spiral-bound cookbooks that promised to stretch your groceries and still bring something hearty to the table. Sour cream noodle bake balanced creamy richness with just enough tang, making it a perfect side for roast chicken, pork chops, or fried meats when times were lean. Cheesy cauliflower gratin. Cheesy cauliflower gratin was a rich and indulgent vegetable side that found a special place in many vintage kitchens. Tender cauliflower florets were smothered in a creamy cheese sauce before being baked under a crispy layer of toasted breadcrumbs. This gratin was a perfect example of comfort food, combining the mild flavor of cauliflower with the lusciousness of melted cheese and a golden, crunchy top. Betty Crocker cookbooks featured this dish as a versatile accompaniment for both everyday meals and holiday feasts. Its creamy texture and cheesy goodness made it a hit with both children and adults, especially those who might usually shy away from vegetables. The gratin's warm, bubbling surface was a welcome sight at any dinner table, signaling a dish full of hearty flavor and home-style care. Green bean and mushroom casserole. Green bean and mushroom casserole without the soup was the forgotten homemade version of a side dish families leaned on before canned shortcuts took over. You would cook fresh green beans, sauté mushrooms with butter and onions, stir in cream sauce from scratch, and bake it all with crisp breadcrumbs or fried onions. It was hearty, practical, and made with real ingredients long before condensed soups became a shortcut. This casserole showed up at Sunday dinners, holidays, and potlucks, sitting next to roast meats or ham, adding creamy, comforting balance to every bite. Families loved it for stretching produce, filling plates, and making even basic meals feel special. The homemade version faded when convenience cooking took over, but back then, it was pure comfort with none of the shortcuts. Breaded eggplant rounds. Breaded eggplant rounds were a summer favorite that tasted like fried sunshine. Grandma would slice eggplants into thick coins, dip them in egg and breadcrumbs, sometimes with a bit of cornmeal, and fry them until golden and crisp. They were salty on the outside, creamy on the inside, and just hearty enough to stand in for meat when money was tight. You could serve them on their own with tomato sauce or tucked into a sandwich with melted cheese. They were messy to make and disappeared faster than she could fry them. The best ones were fresh from the garden, deep purple and still warm from the sun. Eggplant wasn't always a kid favorite, but this dish changed minds quickly. It was comfort food with a little bit of crunch and a lot of history. Today, eggplant shows up more in global recipes than in Grandma's style of home cooking. But back then, it was a clever way to make something simple feel satisfying. 3. Bean Molded Salad. 3 Bean Molded Salad was one of those curious creations from vintage cookbooks that made vegetables and gelatin collide in the strangest way. You would take the classic 3-bean salad, green beans, wax beans, kidney beans, and suspend the whole thing in lemon or lime-flavored gelatin, set it in a mold, and proudly serve it at potlucks or family dinners. Back in the 1950s and 60s, molded salads were a rite of passage in every community cookbook, and this one was no different. It looked fancy, stretched pantry staples, and made sure not a single bean went to waste. People loved it for the bright colors, wobbly texture, and how it sat proudly next to roast meats or casseroles. It might sound a little off-putting now, but back then molded salads were considered practical and even impressive. This one in particular packed protein, vegetables, and a little retro flair, all in one strange, shimmering dish. You might not see it outside of vintage recipe cards today, but once upon a time, it was the talk of every potluck. Quick macaroni and stewed tomatoes. Quick macaroni and stewed tomatoes was one of those meals that showed up when there wasn't much left in the pantry, but families still needed dinner on the table fast. You boiled some elbow macaroni, opened a can of stewed tomatoes, and stirred it all together with salt, pepper, and a little butter if you could spare it. That was it. It sounds humble, but back when budgets were tight and grocery trips were rare, this simple stovetop meal came through. The pasta filled you up, the tomatoes added flavor, and it all came together in under 10 minutes. You would find recipes like this scribbled in old cookbooks, passed down from one generation to the next, or clipped from women's magazines that promised fast, filling meals on a shoestring budget. It might seem plain now, but quick macaroni and stewed tomatoes helped plenty of families stretch their groceries and make dinner happen, even on the hardest days. Cheese and pineapple skewers. Cheese and pineapple skewers were a fun and flavorful appetizer side that perfectly blended sweet and savory notes. Cubed cheese, often cheddar or a mild American variety, was paired with juicy pineapple chunks on toothpicks, creating bite-sized delights that were both refreshing and rich. This combination featured prominently in Betty Crocker cookbooks as a party favorite and an easy-to-prepare hors d'oeuvre. The sharpness of the cheese contrasted with the tropical sweetness of the pineapple, making every bite a balanced explosion of flavors. These skewers were popular at potlucks, holiday gatherings, and casual get-togethers, offering a colorful and attractive option that was simple, yet sophisticated. The ease of assembly made them a go-to for hosts wanting to impress without fuss. Their combination of textures, creamy cheese and juicy fruit, made for an unexpectedly delightful treat that could easily double as a side dish or a snack. Cornmeal mush. Cornmeal mush was a dish born out of need, but remembered for its quiet comfort. Grandma would cook cornmeal slowly with water or milk until it thickened into a soft porridge, then pour it into a pan to chill overnight. By morning it would be firm enough to slice, and she would fry it in a hot skillet until the edges turned crisp and golden. It was eaten with butter, syrup, or even a fried egg on top, whatever the pantry allowed. This wasn't flashy food. It was sustenance, plain and simple, but it filled bellies, warmed cold mornings, and never cost more than a few cents to make. Some people grew up thinking of it as Southern fare, others knew it as polenta, but in Grandma's kitchen it was just cornmeal mush. It showed up at breakfast more often than not, especially during lean months. These days, it's almost never mentioned outside of old cookbooks or Appalachian food blogs, but it deserves a second look. Few dishes stretch so far, last so long, or feel quite so honest on a plate. Corn pudding casserole. Corn pudding casserole was the side dish that made even the humblest dinner plate feel warm and complete. If you flipped through old recipe cards tucked behind flour jars, chances are this one was written in your grandmother's handwriting. It combined sweet corn, butter, eggs, and milk into a creamy bake that sat proudly next to roast ham or pork chops. It was easy, affordable, and filled bellies, making it a go-to for potlucks, church suppers, and holidays. The top baked up golden brown, the inside stayed soft and rich, and every bite reminded you how folks pulled meals together from what they had. Corn pudding casserole carried meals through tough times, earning its place in kitchens from the Depression to the 70s. You don't see it much now, but back then, that creamy baked corn meant comfort on a plate. Hot dog and baked bean skillet. Hot dog and baked bean skillet was one of those quirky 10-minute meals that could only have come from Grandma's old cookbook. You sliced up hot dogs, tossed them in a skillet, and poured in a can of baked beans. That was it. Dinner done. It sounds ridiculous now, but back when money was tight and every meal counted, this was comfort food at its quickest. The beans were filling. The hot dogs gave you just enough protein, and you could stretch one can to feed the whole family. Some folks got fancy with mustard or onions, but most kept it plain. It was the kind of dish that showed up after a long workday when you were too tired to fuss with complicated recipes, but still needed to put something on the table. It bubbled away on the stove, filling the kitchen with that warm, smoky smell that meant dinner was ready. Today it feels like one of those meals we forgot on purpose, but for families back then, it was a lifesaver that showed up fast and kept bellies full. Orange Jell-O salad. Orange Jell-O salad was a shining star of many a mid-century dinner spread, bringing a burst of sunshine to the table. This side dish combined citrusy gelatin with crushed pineapple or mandarin oranges, offering a sweet and tangy profile that refreshed the palate between heavier courses. The translucent orange hue gleamed under the dining room light, hinting at the fruity delight within. It was common to find recipes in Betty Crocker cookbooks, encouraging creative additions like mini marshmallows, shredded coconut, or chopped nuts for added texture. The cool, wobbly nature of the Jell-O made it a playful contrast to the warm, savory mains. This salad was often served chilled, providing a moment of lightness and joy during meals where meat and potatoes dominated. Kids loved it for its sweetness and fun texture, while adults appreciated the nostalgia it evoked. Its simplicity made it a go-to for busy home cooks, and its bright flavor profile helped lift spirits, especially during winter months. Orange Jello salad was truly a dessert and a side dish, all wrapped in one delightful package. These forgotten treasures once graced tables without breaking the budget. Today, they linger as snapshots of ingenuity, nostalgia, and the changing flavors of American kitchens in that remarkable era. Each of these dishes tells a story, not just of food, but of families making do, communities gathering, and the quiet creativity that happened in everyday kitchens. They remind us that before convenience foods and celebrity chefs, home cooks were already artists, transforming simple ingredients into something that felt like love on a plate. Maybe some of these dishes deserve a second chance. Maybe there's something to be said for the patient stirring of cream sauce from scratch, or the satisfaction of watching layers come together in a glass bowl. These weren't just side dishes, they were small acts of care that made meals into memories. The recipes might be fading from family cookbooks, but the spirit behind them doesn't have to disappear. Sometimes the best innovations come from looking backward, remembering what worked, and asking ourselves what we might have lost in our rush toward convenience. So, which of these forgotten sides sparked a memory? Did your grandmother make any of these dishes? Or maybe you discovered one that sounds worth trying again? Drop your favorite side dish in the comments. Give that like button a good stir and subscribe for another helping of food nostalgia.